So, we all know that prescription medication can change the way, like, it can influence your behavior and change your spending habits. And personally, for me, I'm not saying my beliefs need to be your beliefs. For me, I have strong beliefs against taking any medications whatsoever, like, and doing any kind of substances. But I do think they are fascinating to study. So I'm going to tell you about one particular thing and how it impacts your spending behaviors. And I don't know, I don't think you're allowed to say things like this on TikTok, so I'm going to put an emoji here of what I'm talking about. So, how this thing impacts your spending behaviors is that it mostly acts, well, it does a bunch of different things in the brain, but one of the things it does is acts on CB1 receptors in the brain. And the way that any kind of endogenous substance, meaning a substance from the outside coming into the brain, is that unlike our natural brain and how it behaves, the endogenous substance acts on every single receptor that this can act on. Like when you take something from the outside, you put it into your body, and it'll act on any part of your body that accepts that chemical. Any. And that's different from how our body works. Our bodies are way more targeted and selected. Our bodies and our brains are designed to say, hey, for this process, I only want to act on these certain pathways in the brain. That's how we're designed. It's mysterious and we don't understand it, and it's miraculous. But when you take something from the outside, that's why we have side effects. It's because it'll act on any, you think of it like as like a key and a lock. When you take something, it's like a key, it'll go to any single lock that accepts that key. So when you take the substance I was mentioning at the beginning of this video, sorry, I have a cold, then all the locks get unlocked that it acts on, and one of the things that it acts on is something called CB1 receptors in the brain. And the CB1 receptors in the brain, of course, we're talking about every single one of them, but one of them is largely associated with the reward pathway in the brain. Now, this substance does not directly produce dopamine. It actually mimics something in our brain called GABA. And GABA is an inhibitory molecule. But the fascinating thing about this is that when you take the substance, it acts on something in the brain that acts as a brake. Okay, so the GABA in this circuit and in this situation acts as a brake. And this substance comes in and it takes off the brakes in the reward pathway. And so it feels more rewarding to do mundane shit, which I talk about on my page is actually a useful skill to develop. It's something that you can do outside of substances. Now, the problem is with that substance is that behaviors that you already find rewarding, like spending your money, will become even more rewarding than normal. And so a small purchase of or a ridiculous purchase that you would never normally make, maybe it's like you DoorDash more than normal, or you go on Amazon and you buy something you wouldn't normally buy, it changes your spending behavior because it's going to find it more rewarding. On the other hand, the thing that tells you hey, maybe you shouldn't do that, like your prefrontal cortex, it puts more GABA, the inhibitory neuron, to your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's in charge of being like, let's think about this. Is this a good choice? Do we want to make this decision right now? The volume is turned down on that part of the brain, and the volume is turned up on the part of the brain that's like, this would be so awesome. The third thing I want to mention is that this substance also acts on receptors in the hippocampus. So it also largely impairs memory. So the behaviors that you're doing that are fucking up your life become less potent to you because you're not going to store it as a memory. And it's not like you don't remember things you do on this substance. Obviously you do. But your actions and consequences have less salience, meaning they're not worth paying attention to in the brain because of the way that this chemical interacts with your brain. So it's a triple whammy. Like, the behavior becomes more rewarding. The part of your brain that's in charge of thinking about the consequences gets turned down. And the hippocampus, the part of your memory that says, hey, the consequences, let's remember those so we don't do it again, are also turned down. And so this is why I'm very much against substances. Like, if it's an extreme situation, maybe. But most situations can be solved through, honestly, diet, exercise, and good sleep. Most situations. So that's how that substance impacts your ability to spend your money.